Are you ready for once-in-a-lifetime adventure? Welcome to AFRO-ASIAN Literature.
The Afro-Asian literature is a term for writing written by people of mixed African Arab or African Asian ethnicity. This Afro-Asian literature reflects not only African and Asian customs and practices, but also their overall philosophy of life, which is profoundly and primarily contemplative and pleasant. The history of Afro-Asian literature can be traced back to when the first mixed-race person began writing. Earlier written documents were based on stories passed down from generation to generation to entertain, educate, and remind people of their history, heroic deeds of their people, ancestors, and culture. In general, the Afro-Asian literary informed people about the unique struggles and success of Afro-Asian people. And some of the countries under the Afro-Asian literature are Africa, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, China, Israel, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and India.
There are many Afro-Asian literature, and here are some examples. Dreams in a Time of War, written by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, a Kenyan writer who was considered East Africa's leading novelist. So, Dreams in a Time of War is about the writer's childhood. Set in mid-20th century colonial Kenya, Dreams in a Time of War offers an intimate portrait of Ngugi's life as it unfolds in a context of extreme political oppression. Something Torn and New, an African Renaissance. It explores Africa's historical, economic, and cultural fragmentation by slavery, colonialism, and globalization. Throughout this tragic history, a constant and irrepressible force was Europhonism, the replacement of native names, languages, and identities with European ones. The result was the dismemberment of African memory. Seeking to remember language in order to revitalize it, Ngugi's quest is for wholeness, wide-ranging, erudite, and hopeful. Something Torn and New is a critical to save Africa's cultural future. Petals of Blood is a novel deals with social and economic problems in East Africa after independence, particularly the continued exploitation of peasants and workers by foreign businesses, interests, and a greedy indigenous bourgeoisie. Nasra al-Adawi is an Omani writer and poet. Here are some examples of her works. Within Myself. It is the second book written by Nasra. It is a bridge for poetry and thoughts that explore a different side of the illness known as cancer. Brave Faces, The Daring Stand Against Cancer. It is a collection of poetry and true life stories about women with breast cancer in Tanzania. The testimonies in Brave Faces are told through personal stories and poetry that speak to this courage, the loneliness, the anger, and the pain of losing that most precious part of our femininity. Chinua Achebe was a Nigerian novelist, poet, professor, and critic. Things Fall Apart. It is a written narrative about life in Nigeria at the turn of 20th century. The novel chronicles the life of Okonkwo, the leader of an Igbo community, from the events leading up to his banishment from the community for accidentally killing a clansman, through the 7 years of his exile to his return, and it addresses a particular problem of emergent Africa, the intrusion in the 1890s of white missionaries and colonial government into tribal Igbo society. Traditionally structured and peppered with Igbo proverbs, it describes the simultaneous disintegration of protagonist Okonkwo and of his village. The novel was praised for its intelligent and realistic treatment of tribal beliefs and of psychological disintegration coincident with social unraveling. No Longer at Ease is a novel about Obi Okonkwo's grandfather's struggle against the changes brought by English. Arrow of God. The novel is a meditation on the nature, uses, and responsibility of power and leadership. It revolves around Isiulu, the headstrong chief priest of the god Ulu, which is worshipped by the 6 villages of Umaro. Tahar Benjelloun is a Moroccan-French novelist, poet, and essayist who wrote expressively about Moroccan culture, the immigrant experience, human rights, and sexual identity. La Reclusion Solitaire. The Sun-Child. The Sun-Child expresses on multiple levels ideas about the post-colonial condition of Morocco while also emphasizing themes relating to the construction of individual identities. It tells the story of an imaginative, richly drawn novel that critiques gender roles in Arab society through the tale of a girl raised as a boy. With Downcast Eyes. It is a love story between an immigrant worker and an image of a woman, born of dreams and absence. It mingles with his memory, makes memories rise, the naked village, the cracked earth, the human deforestation of the country, the revolt of the peasants of the men in prison.
Too Black by Kenneth P. Philadelphia. Black History Month, Black Lives Matter are just a few phrases or words we often hear and use to express the support to the African American descent all over the world, but mostly in United States. Poetry, like the other literary artworks, acted as a bridge to express our thoughts, sympathies, and opinion on the issues surrounding our world. Too Black express certain traits and pride in their race. The author makes his poem the only way to be understood by others. He talks about their pain, grief, and anger about racism. This poem is still relevant today, which is disturbing as they suffered from discrimination and brutality over the course of history.
As part of our report, I'm going to read to you the poem written by the author, and it is titled Too Black. They take my kindness for weakness. They take my silence for speechless. They consider my uniqueness strange. They call my language slang. They see my confidence as conceit. They see my mistakes as defeat. They consider my success accidental. They minimize my intelligence to potential. My questions means I am unaware. My advancements is somehow unfair. The boy's concern is discontentment. If I stand up for myself, I am defensive. If I don't trust them, I am apprehensive. I am defiant if I separate. I am fake if I assimilate. My character is constantly under attack. Pride for my race makes me too black.
The Ramayana. Ramayana belongs to the Sanskrit literature known as kavya or poetry. However, Ramayana is not just a kavya, it's also considered to be a Mahakavya, or ancient heroic epic poem. It is ascribed to the Hindu sage Valmiki and forms an important part of the Hindu canon. The Ramayana is one of the two great epics of India. The other is the Mahabharata. It depicts the duties of relationships, portraying ideal characters like the ideal servant, the ideal brother, the ideal wife, and the ideal king. The name Ramayana is a Tatpurusha compound of Rama and Ayana, meaning going and advancing. The Ramayana consists of 24,000 verses in 7 books or kandas and 500 cantos or sargas, and tells the story of Rama, an incarnation of the Hindu preserver god Vishnu, whose wife Sita is abducted by the demon king of Lanka named Ravana. Thematically, the epic explores the tenets of human existence and the concepts of Dharma. Verses in the Ramayana are written in a 32-syllable meter called Anustap. The epic was an important influence on later Sanskrit poetry and ancient life and culture, particularly through establishment of the shloka meter. Like its epic cousin, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana is not just an ordinary story. It contains the teachings of ancient Hindu sages and presents them in a narrative allegory with philosophical and the devotional elements interspersed. The characters Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, Bharata, Hanuman, and Ravana are all fundamental to the cultural consciousness of India. According to Hindu tradition, the Ramayana takes place during a period of time known as Treta Yuga. In its extant form, Valmiki's Ramayana is an epic poem of some 50,000 lines. The text survives in several thousand partial and complete manuscripts, the oldest of which appears to date from the 11th century AD. The text has several regional renderings, recensions, and sub-recensions. The first book of Ramayana is the Balahanda. It depicts the origin of Lord Rama and his siblings, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Satrughna. Dasharatha, the king of Ayodhya, had 3 wives, named Kausalya, Kautilya, and Sumitra. Yet, he was childless. He thus performs a fire sacrifice, Uttrakameshti Yagya, which results in him being blessed with 4 children, of which Rama is born to Kausalya, Bharata to Kaikeyi, while Lakshmana and Satrughna are born to Sumitra. In Balahanda, there are detailed accounts of the childhood days of Rama and his siblings and how they learned about scriptures and the art of combat and warfare. One incident which is always highlighted even in the modern reproductions of Ramayana is the instance when Rama and Lakshmana destroyed the demons that were disturbing Vishwamitra in performing sacrificial rites. Vishwamitra himself chose Rama to fight the demons when he came to Dasharatha's court for help. Lakshmana loyally followed Rama even in the rest of Ramayana. Lakshmana's brotherly devotion to Rama is non-parallel. Rama was only 16 years of age when he vanquished the demons. The Balahanda also has details of Sita's origin and how Rama was married to Sita. Sita is considered to be a magical gift from God, as she found in a field by the king Janaka, the king of Mithila. Rama is married to Sita after passing Shiva's test of lifting and wielding a heavy bow. Towards the end of Balahanda, the brothers Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrugna are married to Sita, Urmila, Mandabi, and Shudrakirti respectively. Second book is Ayodhyakanda. It contains the events that lead to his exile in the forest for 14 years. Having been married for 12 years, Dasharatha decided to pass on the throne to Rama, a decision which is positively affirmed by every member of the Kosala assembly and also the subjects. A day prior to the grand crowning of Rama, Mantara, a cunning maidservant, aroused the jealousy of Kaikeyi, due to which Kaikeyi claims 2 wishes that was granted to her by Dasharatha long ago. Her first wish being that Rama should be sent to exile into the forest for 14 years, and the second that the throne should be passed to her son Bharata. Dasharatha, known as a king who always fulfills his promises, was in the middle of a very precarious situation. Rama lightens his burden by accepting the punishment with absolute calm and self-control. He is joined by Sita and Lakshmana. Even though he refuses Sita to join him, the selfless love of Sita could not see her husband going alone in the forest for 14 years. Bharata, who was away, declines to accept the crown because of his mother's weak tactics. He requests Rama to return, but Rama, a loyal and devoted son, chooses to carry out his father's orders and says that he won't return till the tenure of the exile is completed. Bharata then takes Rama's sandals and places it on the throne, where he rules on Rama's behalf. Third book is Ayodhyakanda. Ayodhyakanda has detailed accounts of the last year exile of Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana in the forest. The first major incident that takes place is the destruction of Kara, the demon brother of Surpanaka, and his demons by Rama. Kara organizes an attack against Rama and Lakshmana, as Lakshmana has ripped off the nose and ears of Surpanaka when she attempts to kill Sita after failing to seduce the brothers Rama and Lakshmana. The next event is the most popular event in the history of Hindu mythology, the capture of Sita by Ravana after she crosses the Lakshmana Rekha, drawn out by Lakshmana for her protection. The Rekha ensured that no one could come in, but allowed the exit of people. Ravana had come in the disguise of a man wanting help from Sita. Innocent Sita got trapped in Ravana's cunning plan, and she leaves the Rekha, after which is forcibly taken away by Ravana. Ravana had done all this to avenge the attack of his sister and his demon brother. At Lanka, she kept in the shield of the Rakshasas. Ravana, who was swayed by Sita's eternal beauty, commands Sita to marry him, but Sita, who is ever loyal to Rama, denies. Meanwhile, Rama and Lakshmana, after finding out about Sita's capture from Jatayu, immediately leave to save her. During their forage for Sita, they encounter demon Kabanda and the ascetic Shrabari, one of the greatest devotees of Lord Ram, who lead them to Hanuman and Sugriva. Fourth book of Ramayana is Kishkanda. It primarily focuses on the story of Vanara King Bali. It is based in the ape citadel Kishkanda. Rama and Lakshmana meet Hanuman, the greatest devotee to Lord Rama. In Kishkanda, Rama helps Sugriva by defeating his older brother Bali, due to which Sugriva regains the hold of his kingdom of Kishkanda. Rama helps Sugriva so that he in return helps him to find Sita. However, soon Sugriva forgets his promises to Rama. The wife of former King Bali, Tara, very cleverly reminds Sugriva of them and convinces him to help Rama. She also stops and blocks Rama from destroying the citadel. Finally, Sugriva sends search armies of Vanors to all the corners of the earth. The armies from north, west, and east returned with no answer. The southern army, under the exquisite leadership of Angad and Lord Hanuman, discovered from a vulture named Sampati that Sita is taken to Lanka.
Chapter 5 Sundarakanda. The Sundarakanda consists of detailed and vivid accounts of adventure of Hanuman. Sundarakanda also tells about the magnanimous physical strength and power of Lord Hanuman. He turns to a huge shape of leap across to the sea, Tolanka. He fights many demons on the way who test his strengths and abilities, but none could stop the mighty Hanuman from reaching Lanka to find out about Sita. When Hanuman reaches Lanka, all hell breaks loose. He destroys all trees, the buildings, and kills many of Ravana's warriors. He also gets captured in order to have dialogue with Ravana and pleads him to leave Sita. However, Ravana doesn't agree and instead condemns Hanuman, and his tail is set on fire. Hanuman escaped and jumped from one roof to another, spreading fire in Ravana's citadel. Then Hanuman heads back to Kishkanda with euphoric news. Chapter 6 Udakanda. The Udakanda is the greatest of the Kandas, as it contains the accounts of great Ramayana war between Rama's and Ravana's army. This Kanda also has the description of the story as to show the great Rama Setu bridge was built across the sea, using stones that floated on the water as they had Rama's name engraved on them. Through this bridge, that Rama and his great army crossed over to Lanka. Rama was even joined by Ravana's renegade brother Vibhishana. This Kanda has also great Hindu epic story of Hanuman carrying an entire Mount Sumeru to Lanka, as he could not identify which herb would cure Lakshmana, who was seriously injured with a powerful weapon hurled at him by Indrajit, Ravana's son. Eventually, the war ends when Rama kills Ravana and he crowns Vibhishana on the throne of Lanka. The great Agni Pariksha, the test performed by Sita to prove purity, is accounted in this book. Sita plunged into sacrificial fire on Rama's order. The Lord of Fire, Agni, raised and turned Sita unharmed, thus proving the integrity of her soul and body. At the end of Uddakandas, Rama's exiled tenure is also complete, and he returns to Ayodhya, welcomed with lights and celebration. Chapter 7 Uttara-Kanda. Uttara-Kanda considered to be latter addition to the original story. It deals with the final years of Rama, Sita, and his brothers. Even though Sita passed the test of fire, Rama bends to the public opinion and banishes Sita to the forest under the hermitage of the sage Valmiki. When Rama banished Sita, she was pregnant with twin children. She gives birth to the two kids in the forest, Laba and Kusha, who grow up under the guidance of teachings of Valmiki. Valmiki composed Ramayana, which sung by Lava and Kusha in the presence of Rama and the large audience. When they recite about Sita, Rama is filled with grief. Valmiki produces Sita and she vanishes into Mother Earth, where she came from. Rama later learns that Lava and Kusha are his children. Years later, Rama is informed by a messenger of God that the object of his being born on the earth is to fulfill and returns to his heavenly abode.